Greetings and salutations, Second Star right back with more Raid Shadow Legends, and on screen we have the topic of today's conversation, and that is one Burangiri, the defense-based Shadowkin, relatively new champion, an interesting build, if not great. I think that he needs some tweaking and needs some work, but if you happen to have drawn Burangiri and he's one of your only epic defense-based champions and you want to see if he can help you with some content, here's how I built mine, and I built a couple different versions, a couple different ways, stacking defense, more hit points, more accuracy. I tried a bunch of different things. I think this is the way that he works best for me and the way I play, and maybe this will help you too. So what I did was I put him in a provoke set to maximize his crowd control ability. I think that's where he shines. He's not really, I mean, he can deal some damage, but it's not really his strong suit. He's okay about it, but what he does is different. I think he's more a crowd control type of champion. So let's go through his skill set real quick, and I'll show you why I feel that way. Okay, so number one, Battering Skull. Attacks an enemy, 20% chance of placing a provoke buff for one turn. And as you can see, I booked this champion. I did not want to, right? But without books, he was horrible. I mean, almost to the point of being almost unusable. Not a good champion unbooked. So like I said, if this is one of your only champions, defense-based champions, you're kind of new to the game, or I don't know what. But if Burangiri is who you got, he needs to be booked to work. That's just how I found him. He drove me crazy unbooked. So as much as I cannot stand investing my epic books in champions, especially ones that aren't very good, and I'm not saying he's bad, he's just not the best, I wanted to make him as best as I could for this showcase. So he has to be booked, otherwise he is just useless. Okay, so Battering Skull, 20% chance of placing a provoke on his A1, but if you book it, it gets up to 30%. And then if you get the tier 6 defense skill, then it gives the extra 5% of placing a provoke, and I think that makes that little bit of difference just helps a lot. It makes his A1 pretty useful at that point. And again, he's defense based, so he doesn't die easy, and he does a decent amount of damage, if not great. So anyway, not a bad skill when booked on his A1. And a lot of people don't talk about booking A1 skills, but I think this one kind of needs it. Okay, Bakemono Charge is his A2, and as you can see by the icon, there are some dazed people here, and yes, it's a AoE stun on his A2, which I'm a huge fan of. Stun is a great debuff. Attacks all enemies, 40% chance of placing a stun debuff for one turn. And then you can get that 4-turn cooldown down to 3 turns, so you have a 3-turn AoE stun, not bad. And then that chance goes from 40% to 60%. So a 60% AoE stun is pretty good. There are champions that have like a higher percentage rate of landing it, but there's mitigations for that. Like Ashraf the Wanderin that you see right next to him. He has a 70% chance, I think, when booked, but it's only if the attack is higher than the defense. So half the time he'll be HP burning, the other half the time he'll be freezing. Armenia, it's only if their turn meters are fully depleted that the 75% chance to stun kicks in. And probably the best counterexample of this is Luria, and her A2 has the AoE freeze at 75%, but she's attack-based champion, so she's also kind of squishy, so she's going to need a defense-based champion or something to help her get through content anyway. So just from Burangiri alone, this is a really good A2 when booked. A 3-turn AoE stun with a 60% chance to land is good, and plus if you have the tier 6 mastery, it gets up to 65%. It's a pretty good skill. A2 is not bad at all. But moving on to his Frightful Orc Ride, this one gets a little bit more problematic. A 25% strengthen on all allies for 2 turns. A 2-turn strengthen is a good buff. Also places a shield for 2 turns on all allies with less than 50% hit points. The shield buff is equal to 15% of the target's max hit points. Okay, now this is a little bit more problematic, I think. Okay, first of all, it's 6-turn cooldown natively, which does you no good whatsoever. So again, I actually just kind of tried to book this twice, and this was the last thing that got booked. I had no luck with books whatsoever, so that's why this guy's like fully booked. Frightful Warcry does not work the way it's currently built, I don't think. The strengthen works, of course. Strengthen's a decent buff. But this shield does not work. I think that they should rework this a bit. Okay, so less than 50% hit points, I kind of understand. I don't really, because, I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't put a shield on at all. And when you have a skill, you don't want to waste an entire cooldown on just a strengthen, right? It's just not worth it, I don't think. And then the shield buff equal to 50% of the target's max hit points. I mean, if you were the defense-based champion, you kind of think that you're trying to carry the team. I mean, they should have stuff that, I mean, he has the strengthen, right? But this shield buff equal to 15% of the target's max hit points, at least make it 50% of Burangiri's max hit points. At least do that, right? At the very minimum. Otherwise, make it a 20 or 25% shield buff, because it's not only does it not always work, but when it does, it's almost insignificant, depending on your team composition. It's just, I'm not happy with this skill. This skill needs to be buffed, absolutely. And then moving on to Soulmonger, heals a champion by 50% of their max hit points whenever an ally or an enemy dies. The first time when I first drew this champion, I didn't see the or enemy dies part. I just saw the ally. I'm like, well, that seems like a stupid skill. But this is actually kind of useful. You know, helping through waves. You know, you're knocking through waves every single time. That for my example, every single time an enemy dies, he gets healed for almost 25,000 hit points. You know, that's just that's just the way that I have him built. And that's a really big, decent heal every time an enemy dies. And he doesn't have to kill the enemy, it's just whenever it dies. And then that can be accentuated with Masteries, so what you're looking at is a pretty good heal every time something dies. The problem is generally it's an overheal. I mean, generally you don't need it. You know, a lot of times he's already at full health, but regardless, there are times when it does kick in and it helps and it's good. You really don't have to worry too much about Burangiri dying. He's always going to be the last guy to die on your team, like almost always. So, you know, that's a benefit. And then his aura is a resist in battles by 40%. You know, I can take it or leave that. That's just depends on your playstyle and what your content you're in. Okay, so let's go into how I built him. And like I said, I have him in a provoke set. I had decent provoke gear. I did not finish building this one. I think I finished my artifact enhancement event and I said, okay, I'm done. But yeah, I don't think anything was really worth the extra. Yeah, nothing was really worth the extra enhancement at level 16 since it's already legendary. So I just didn't bother with that piece. But provoke sets aren't really used a whole lot. So probably as you've just been playing, you've been throwing away or destroying a lot of your provoke sets, but you're probably also keeping the good pieces. Like you're probably keeping your speed boots that are provoke. You're probably keeping, you know, the hit point percentage, defense percentage chest, you know, stuff like that. You have some of that laying around. And if you draw Burangiri and you want to build them, provoke set I think is the best way to go, because then you're really accentuating on his crowd control abilities. Because remember, provoke, adding that 30% 30% chance to provoke, you know, is affected by Masteries, and it's also on both of his attack skills. So not only does he have 2 chances to provoke here, he also has a chance to, if he misses the stun, maybe he could provoke if he misses the stun. A lot of times he'll provoke and stun, which is useless but kind of funny, and it adds another debuff. Maybe you have. Anyway, it's just something to consider. It really works out well on this champion. I mean, to really double down on his crowd control abilities, I think that's the best way to do this champion. Okay, moving on to Master. Oh, let's look at his total stats before I forget. Okay, so a little over 45,000 hit points, 1,400, 1,500 attack, 4,500 defense. And he's defense based, so that's kind of where you want to look. But they also want the accuracy to land those primo debuffs. So all this other stuff doesn't really matter as much. Speed, if he's in Doom Tower, you probably want him a little bit faster than this, right? But otherwise, in most content, this is going to be okay. You know, you're going to get by. But you definitely want his accuracy up as much as you can to land those debuffs, or have them not resisted. So on to Masteries. Speaking of that, we'll go into how I have him built. I do have him in this accuracy here, but I also split off into Shield Bearer because he does place those shields, and even though I'm unhappy with how they perform, if the Mastery's there, I definitely go for it. So any time I can improve his shields and his heals also, because he does heal himself, I tried to put that on there as much as possible. Anywhere it was available, I put it on. Increase more accuracy, turn meter, and again, because he's putting in stuns and provokes, I didn't bother with these down here because they don't. These masteries don't impact stun or provoke. So instead, I went down to lasting gifts to try to extend the strengthen in the shield that he is able to put down. And of course, and then in defense, I just went straight down tough skin, rejuvenation, value of shield buffs. Like I said, that's going to help him at least marginally. Here we go. And then Harvest Despair, since he is putting stuns. He can also put in the leech as well, which every little bit helps, right? A little counterattack, because again his A1 places a provoke, so him counterattacking and then provoking is also a really good combination there. Cycle of Revenge, turn meter, and then of course the big one, Fearsome Presence, which actually helps land those debuffs by an extra 5%. 5% doesn't seem like much, but I tell you, man, it helps. Okay, so I think he's about as good as you can possibly make him, given his skill set. His provokes, stuns, you help him land as much as you can, build the mastery as much as you can to make it work. What more is there to say except let's go into some dungeons and see what he does. I did take him in. He's good. I didn't record his spider, but he can do spider also when he's the off tank, the opposite affinity. So 20 and 24 or whatever. If you can find a place in your team for him, I mean, there's definitely more optimal builds than putting Burangiri in there. But again, he benefits from all those spiderlings dying. He's going to heal every time. He's a pretty good tank for that, even if actually going through and playing the dungeon without cheese is something that not many people do. If you were to do so, you could do worse than Burangiri. Okay, so here we are in Dragon. This is again a fast run. I have just a kind of a plow through team here with a bunch of attack champions, and then Burangiri just trying to be the little carry. And it kind of works. The AI favors his strength in first. That's the one it puts on. So, and this is not a team that I put in the team builder to put the AI in, because it doesn't really matter. I mean, this is just Dragon's 20, and it's fast. Chani didn't make it. Sorry, Chani, but you did your bit in wave 1, so thank you. I appreciate your service. And then we'll just blow through here. And like I said, he helps the waves. I was talking through his AoE, so I missed it. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it was impressive. Okay, so on the boss, you see there's 17,000 damage. It's not bad, right? It's not horrible. For a defense-based champion, I mean, you could do better, but like I said, he's here for crowd control, which is completely useless once you get to a boss that doesn't have any minions. So he's much better on Ice Golem than he is on Dragon, but let's just see what happens when the fight is over, which will be very soon. Okay, thank you, Zavia, for just being insane on this level. Okay, so as you can see, he did 125 damage. Again, that's not really what he's here for, but his 300,000 healing kind of is. Granted, that's just because he's only healing himself. So those numbers, those big, impressive numbers, are often kind of misleading because he's really just healing himself, and a lot of it is an overheal. He's here for crowd control, so don't be misled by the big healing numbers, which look impressive, but actually, most of the time, aren't. Okay, so this is Ice Golem. I'll try to pay more attention to his actual stun and provoke abilities here. Okay, there we go. So he landed 1 stun. Oh, because the other ones were buff blocked, of course. Well, that's going to be a difficulty. I hate these 2 chicks. They drive me crazy. If I don't get rid of them right away, it's just a slog. Because I build a lot of my teams around debuffs, and they got to ruin that for me. All right, come on, let's go. She's not selling Girl Scout cookies. Let's just take her out. Let's go. All right, thank you, Chani, for wasting your A2 on that champion. That's okay, we're done. Okay, so there we go. So what we did, we land 2 provokes and 2 stuns. not bad, right? The only person that didn't get it was that raider right there in the foresight. So, good enough. I mean, that bought us some time to recuperate. We had another round of getting our skills back. Really, this champion has decent crowd control. Probably the only one I think that is better at crowd control is probably Luria. Her A2 is my favorite. I don't have empirical evidence of that, but whenever I'm thinking crowd control, I think Luria is probably her A2 is probably the best at that. But he just brings a bit more to the table in that he's defense based, and he has the provokes, and he's built for it. Luria, you're building for attack, you're building for damage. You're not really building around her crowd control abilities. It's just kind of a bonus, right? But here, that's his thing. My problem though is that when you're thinking about a defense-based champion that you want to add to your team, you kind of want, I don't know, I think a bit more carry ability, right? Like if I was gonna do a hierarchy of who I'd rather have besides Burangiri, I'd probably go easily attainable ones anyway, like Scylla the Drakes. Everyone gets her eventually if you just play long enough. She's probably the best carry because she has the res and the stuns, right? Gorgorab, Vergis, I'd probably take over Burangiri. Yeah, then he's probably in that second tier after those guys. Again, great crowd control, decent defense, but he's really not going to help anyone stay alive with himself. I mean, when you see these shields come up, they're minuscule, and it's just not very impressive. There, you see that tiny one he put on Doom Priest? And Doom Priest is another one I'd probably choose. If I can only pick one, I'd probably pick Doom Priest over Burangiri. But we got through it. He crowd controlled his way through those irritating waves. You could do worse. Again, if he is your only champion, this is the way I'd build him to maximize his efforts. Here he is in Arena. This is a pretty simple thing. Royal Guard takes out the biggest threat. Let's see, Hope is going to block some buffs on Septimus just in case. And we'll strengthen here just to let Flame Dude there, his name off the top of my head, just to ward off his attacks, and then we will try to stun after that. Drexthar, Blood Twin, thank you. Okay, so now we put our AoE, and there we go. Stuns and leeches on both champions, which is always nice to see. Lets them skip their turn, and then we take out this guy. Let's see if we can now give a provoke. So if you get an extra turn, which he doesn't here, but if you had an extra turn healed, it's just another waste of time. And Apothecary can get so irritating. He's just healing, and you just can't get him down. Burangiri can put a kibosh on that with stuns and provokes. So there you go. That is Burangiri. I like him. He's not great. Unbooked, he is a waste of time. If you don't have the 13 books to put into Burangiri, I would not even bother. I'd just stick him in the vault. But if you want, if you have the extra books, if you want some really good crowd control, and he's a pretty decent looking champion. I kind of like his design, right? The blue hair and the spring-heeled Jack blue flame that he shoots out. It's fun. He's a cool design champion. But again, probably not a top-tier defense-based champion, but one of the best crowd controllers, I would say. So there's that. If that's something that you're looking for and you think that's something that would help your team dynamic progress through Raid, you could do worse than Burangiri. I like him, but he has to be fully booked and fully masteried. Otherwise, no, I would not bother at all and just stick him in the vault. So anyway, that's my summation. That's my showcase of Burangiri. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Throw me a like if you enjoyed it, and comment down below if you've built Burangiri or if you've come across him in an opposite arena team and what your impressions were. Whatever. I'd like to hear it. So thank you. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.